It's 11:38 p.m. You're counting the register in a small gym that barely breaks even. You've done this every night for 3 years. Count cash, log memberships, lock up, go home. You're thinking about quitting. There's no future here, no leverage, no power. The front door opens after you've already turned the sign to closed. You don't look up at first. You assume it's a late member. Then you hear the sound, fast, uneven footsteps, followed by something heavy hitting the mat. You look up. A man is dragging another man across the floor. The one being dragged is barely conscious, face split, shirt soaked. The one dragging him isn't asking for permission. You move toward them because you don't know what else to do. "This isn't a clinic," you say. "You need a hospital." The man dragging him stops and looks at you like you've misunderstood something fundamental. "No hospital," he says. "You own this place tonight." You don't correct him. You don't say you're just an employee. He drops the injured man onto the mat. Another man comes in behind him and locks the door. A third starts pulling cash from his pocket and placing it on the counter without counting it. "Patch him enough so we can walk," the first one says. "We've got another fight in 40 minutes. You hesitate. You're not a medic. You've taken a first aid course. That's it. The second man steps closer. If he can't stand, you take his place. Now you understand the terms. You grab the first aid kit. You stop the bleeding as best you can. You keep your hands steady because you have no choice. The man on the mat groans, tries to push you away, fails. You work faster. "What is this?" you ask. The first man watches you. "An opportunity," he says. You don't answer. You finish what you can. You wrap the worst of it. You get him sitting up. He's not ready, but he's alive. 40 minutes later, you're still there. You don't leave when you could. You stay because no one told you to go. Because the money on the counter is more than you make in a month. Because something has shifted and you feel it.
They bring in 2 more men. Different faces, same energy, controlled violence. They clear space on the mat. There are no rules explained. There's no paperwork, just a nod. The fight starts. You watch because you have to, because now you're part of it. You see how quickly it turns from controlled to desperate. You see how the crowd, small, silent, watching from the edges, leans in, not away. When it's over, one man stands, the other doesn't. The first man walks over to you again. "You kept the last one alive," he says. "That's useful." You don't respond. He gestures at the cash on the counter. "You want to keep counting membership so you want in." You look at the money, then at the mat, then at the man you just patched up, now sitting against the wall, breathing but barely. You understand the question isn't really a question. You nod. That's how it starts. At first, you're just the one who keeps people alive long enough for the next round. You clean wounds, stop bleeding, decide who can fight again and who gets pulled. That alone gives you influence. Fighters start looking to you before they step back in. Promoters, if that's what they are, start asking your opinion. "How long?" they ask. 3 minutes, you say. Or, "He's done." Or sometimes, "He'll die if you send him back." They don't always listen. You learn quickly that your decisions aren't about right or wrong. They're about cost. If a fighter can bring in bets, he goes back in. If he's replaceable, he doesn't. You start tracking things in your head. Who draws money? Who folds under pressure? Who fights smarter than they look? You stop thinking of them as people first. It's easier that way. Within 3 months, you're not just patching fighters, you're organizing them. "You fight him," you tell one. "Not him, not yet." "Why?" he asks. "Because you'll lose," you say, "and I need you to win twice before you lose once." You don't know when you started saying "I," but it sticks. The man who brought you in, he doesn't interfere much. He watches. He lets you make decisions, then measures the outcomes. One night he asks, "Why him?" You point at a fighter you just paired. He's slower, but he doesn't panic. The other one does. And that matters? It decides the second round, you say. He nods. The fight goes exactly how you predicted. That's when he starts trusting you with more. You begin handling the money. Not all of it, just the parts that require precision. You track bets, payouts, margins. You see where the real power is. It's not in the fights, it's in the flow around them. Fights are just the engine. Within a year, you're running entire nights. You choose the fighters. You set the matchups. You control who gets seen and who doesn't. You start moving locations, keeping things unpredictable. You build a system. Tier 1, newcomers, desperate, untested, cheap. Tier 2, regulars, reliable, consistent, building a name. Tier 3, draws, the ones people come to see, the ones who generate real money. You create separation. You control progression. You want to move up, you tell a fighter? Win twice clean. No hesitation, no collapse. What do I get? He asks. Better opponents, bigger payouts. And if I lose, you drop, you say, and you don't get back easily. You're not just managing fights anymore. You're managing ambition. It changes how people look at you.
You're not the medic, you're the gatekeeper. And that's when the problems start. A man approaches you after a fight. Not a fighter, clean clothes, calm voice. You're wasting potential, he says. You don't respond right away. You're running 1 ring, he continues. You could run 10. At what cost, you ask? He smiles slightly. Control. You know what he means. Expansion means exposure. More money, more risk, more attention. But it also means more power. You don't answer that night. A week later, you call him. Expansion isn't immediate, it's careful. You don't just open new rings, you build connections, you partner with existing operations, you standardize rules, not for fairness, but for predictability. You introduce rankings across locations. A fighter in one city can challenge a fighter in another. You create movement, narrative, stakes. You turn isolated fights into a network. Now you're not just running nights, you're running an ecosystem. Money scales fast, faster than you expected. With that comes pressure. One of your top fighters refuses a matchup. I'm not fighting him, he says. He's not in my tier. You don't choose, you reply. I'm the draw, he says. People come from me. You look at him. You measure the risk. He's right, but you can't let him be right publicly. You fight him, you say, or you don't fight at all. He stares at you. You'd lose money. Yes, you say, short term. He realizes what you're doing. You're protecting the system, not the individual. He fights. He wins, barely. Afterward, he looks at you differently, not with defiance, with calculation. You've taught him something. You've taught all of them something. No one is bigger than the structure you built. That's how you move into the next tier yourself. You're no longer just managing operations, you're shaping behavior. You start manipulating outcomes, not directly, not obviously. You adjust matchups to create rivalries. You delay certain fights to build anticipation. You let rumors spread, then confirm them at the right moment. You're not just running a fight club, you're running a market. And markets attract predators. A group approaches you with an offer. Merge, they say. We combine networks, share fighters, share revenue. What's the split, you ask? Equal. You already know that's not true. You investigate, quietly. You learn how they operate, less structured, more volatile, bigger fights, but less control. If you merge, you gain scale, you lose stability. If you refuse, you become competition. You choose neither. You agree to a limited partnership, controlled exchanges, no full integration. They accept, but you see it in their faces. This isn't over. It never is. Years pass, but not in a way that feels like time. It feels like accumulation. more fighters, more locations, more money, more risk. You start tracking things differently. Not just fighters and fights, but threats, external attention, internal instability. You build layers. You're not visible anymore, not directly. You operate through people who operate through others. If something goes wrong, it doesn't trace back to you easily, but it still traces. One night, everything shifts again. A fight goes wrong. Not unusual, but this time it's not contained. Someone records it, not the fight, the aftermath, the part you always control. It spreads faster than you can stop it. You shut down operations immediately. You move assets. You cut connections. You start asking questions. Who recorded it? Who released it? Why? You find the answer. One of your own. A mid-tier operator. Someone you trusted with a region. He saw an opportunity, thought he could leverage exposure into power. You don't confront him directly. You remove him, quietly, completely, and you make it clear, without saying it, that this is what happens.
The system stabilizes. It always does. But something has changed. You're not just building anymore. You're defending. Every decision now has two layers: growth and protection. You start turning away opportunities you would have taken before. Too visible, too risky, too fast. You refine instead of expand. You make the tiers stricter, harder to move up, harder to stay. You increase stakes internally, not just in fights, but in loyalty. People start choosing sides even when there are no sides to choose. That's when you realize something. You've built something that doesn't need you to run, but it still needs you to hold together. And that's the most dangerous position of all. Because if it runs without you, you lose control. If it depends on you, you become a target. There's no stable version of this. You sit with that realization longer than you expected. You think about the gym, the register, the version of you that counted cash and locked doors. That version of you had no power, but also no weight. Now, every decision you make shifts something larger than you. You consider stepping back, not out, just back, delegating more, reducing your visibility further. But you know how this works. Power doesn't like distance.
If you step back too far, someone steps forward, and they won't run it the way you do. They'll run it faster, louder, riskier. They'll undo everything you built to get more, quicker. So you stay. You adjust instead. You start planning for something else. Not an exit, there is no clean exit, but a transition. You identify people who think like you, who see systems, not just outcomes. You test them. You give them control in small areas. You watch what they prioritize. Do they protect the structure or exploit it? Most fail. A few don't. You build around those few, not as replacements, as buffers. You create distance without disappearing. It works for a while, until it doesn't. Because the higher you go in this structure, the fewer problems are external. The biggest threats come from within. A disagreement at your level isn't about a fight or a payout, it's about direction. One of your closest operators pushes for expansion again. We're holding back, he says. We could double in a year. At what cost, you ask? Exposure, he admits, but manageable. You've heard that before. We're stable, you say. Stability is leverage. Stability is stagnation, he replies. You look at him and realize he's not wrong, but he's not right either. That's the problem at this level. There are no clear answers, only trade-offs. You let him run a controlled expansion, limited scope, measured risk. He pushes beyond it, not recklessly, strategically. It works. Money increases, reach expands, and with it, attention. You feel the pressure building again. Not immediate, not obvious, but real. You call him in. You went beyond the plan, you say. It paid off, he replies. For now. That's always the case, he says. You taught me that. He's using your own logic against you.
You don't respond right away because he's also showing you something else. He's ready, not to replace you, but to challenge you. And in this world, that's the same thing over time.
You don't remove him. That would be short-sighted. You integrate him further, bring him closer, increase his responsibility. If he's inside the core, you can manage the impact. If he's outside, you can't. That's the final tier you reach, not the top. There is no top, just a position where every move you make is about balance, between growth and collapse, between control and trust, between power and survival. You still make decisions every day. Who fights, who rises, who falls, who stays. But now you also decide who gets close to you, and that's the decision that matters most. Because the structure you built is strong, but it's not unbreakable. Nothing is. You understand that now in a way you didn't when you started, back when it was just a man on a mat and a choice you couldn't avoid. Now every choice is like that, immediate, high stakes, irreversible. You don't get to step away from them. You just get better at carrying them. And somewhere in the network you built, another fight is starting. Someone new is stepping onto a mat, thinking this is just one moment. You know better. You know it's the beginning of a system that will shape them, use them, test them, the same way it did to you. And you're still here, still deciding, still holding it together. For now.